It's your girl, your host, Jocelyn. Y como siempre, I am so grateful you are here. And I'm so grateful to be joined by an incredible person, artist, Andrés Tardio, who is in charge of artist relations at Genius and also handles the interviews for their series called Verified, if I'm correct.
You are
and
correct.
Is also an overall just interviewer, writer, photographer. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you for being here, Andres.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here too. And, I admire all the work you do. So I'm glad we could do this.
As always, we start these conversations with gratitude. So I'd like to ask you what it is that you feel grateful for.
I like that you give people homework on your show because I do the same thing on my podcast where I tell people like they have to pick 2 songs to represent each stage of their life. And so now I get a taste of my own medicine with homework to do before the interview. So thank you for that, Jocelyn. I am grateful for a lot of things, but I will boil it down to this. I'm grateful for family. I'm grateful for work. I'm grateful for health. And I'm grateful to have creative outlets and the freedom to express myself creatively in different ways. And I'm really grateful for all of those things right now. That's what came to mind when I thought about gratitude. But in reality, I'm grateful for everything. I think there's so many things we take for granted in our day-to-day. And so my wife and I, we pray with our sons every night. And one of the things we say is we're grateful for everything we have, And so gratitude is really important to me, just being grateful for everything. That's why I love the show.
Thank you. And it's so beautiful to hear that you incorporate the practice of gratitude with your family. I love that.
I think it's an important thing to learn early on. I think that's something we all have to be mindful of because you don't really know what you have until it's gone. And so rather than wait until it's gone, really just cherish and enjoy everything that you do have in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel called to ask you, what is something in your life that you feel you recently took for granted? Or what's like the first thing that came to mind, if any?
The thing that came to mind when I was saying that is I tore my ACL some years ago. And it was in my right knee while playing basketball. So anybody who's torn their ACL or had any basketball injury knows what that's like. And, not being able to walk after that, you're like, wow, it's just going up the stairs or making little quick maneuvers here and there. You take that for granted every single day. Those who have that ability, you take those things for granted. Being able to speak, you take that for granted every single day. And all of those things, once you're not able to have that for a moment, for one reason or another, you realize just the beauty in the mundane, the beauty in the everyday, the beauty in the things that we just overlook sometimes. And so that's kind of what came to mind when I was saying that, just being able to respect what you have, respect the gifts that you have, and appreciate all of the abilities that you have. So that you don't have to wait until it's gone to really appreciate all those things. You can cherish them while you have them, and that's kind of what I was thinking about when I said that.
That's one reason why I love emphasizing the practice of gratitude so much, and why I'm such an advocate for it, because I feel like it's such an accessible tool for everyone to like vibrate higher, if you will. Because there really is always something to be grateful for, even for like the everyday mundane things like you mentioned.
No, that's a fact. I mean, being able to wake up every day, there's something really incredible about that. And we take that for granted. You just wake up and you go about your business. But this is a blessing, just being able to be alive.
There's so many different directions I feel like I could start this conversation, because like I mentioned, you're an incredible person who is just talented in so many things and has incredible experience. But I felt inspired to start this conversation by asking you Do you feel like you are living the life of your dreams?
Thank you for starting there. Yeah, I definitely do. I was thinking about that in preparation for this, I think, but just mentally just driving around. I was thinking about that, and I'm just so grateful for that. All my life I've loved lyrics, just loved lyrics, the intricacies, the fun that you can have with words, the intelligent and clever ways you could play with words. And so now to be able to talk to people about words in particular, I mean, that's incredible. I could have never even dreamed it. It was a dream that I couldn't even dream. You know what I mean? It's a very insane thing to be able to do that now. And then, even with my podcast, being able to talk to people about music and life, all my life, that's all I've ever wanted to talk to people about is music and the depth of life. I get to do that. And then, I've always loved art. And so to be able to take photos and, work with different companies on that front, it's like, it's amazing. It's amazing. And then, to be with my wife who, I've loved for so long, and like that side of things is also like a dream, it's my children, to see a new version of my wife and I and our love in two different human beings. I mean, it's incredible. So yeah, it definitely feels like living a dream, and respecting the fact that it's real, and just trying to cherish it for what it is.
Yeah, I had a feeling that this was going to be your answer. And I'm excited to ask you, who did Andres have to become in order to be someone who is living their dream life?
Man, I just had to be myself. I just had to be me. I had to become me. You know what I mean? Like your whole life, you try to figure out who you are, and I think the answer is always in front of you. And so I just had to know who I was and respect who I was and embrace who I was. And I know sometimes you ask people like, "What season are you in?" And I thought about that too. And it's like my season is just being present and being aware of myself and of the life that I have, like being aware of that, and not taking any of that for granted and being present within that. And I'm not saying I do that perfectly or that I do that all the time or I'm super good at that or whatever, but that's where I want to be right now. And that's where I put my intention day in, day out. Like, let me be present and let me be myself. And then let me embrace all that comes with that.
Yeah, being your true self, I feel like really is the cheat code or like the key to unlocking your dream life, because when you align with your true self, you're aligning with your true passions and your true purpose. And when you are vibrating on that level, you are able to attract all that is meant for you. Whereas when you're not your true self, I feel like you are kind of going after things that actually aren't really meant for you. And like you create these challenges for yourself. And I feel like be your true self is something that is expressed so often, but I also feel like a lot of people still don't fully understand what that means, or like may feel like they are their true selves, or don't understand the concept of like, what do you mean be my true self? So in light of that, do you have your own example of like a time where you weren't your true self, where you felt like you were lost and you were kind of taking all these detours that were taking you away from the life of your dreams?
For me, I've always tried as much as I could to just be true to my beliefs, true to myself. That evolves, that changes, and you have to embrace those changes too. So it's not to say like, oh, I was myself at 10 years old and I stayed that way through now. That's not true. I've evolved, I've grown, matured. But some of the things are still there, man. Some of the things that, when I was little, those things are still here. And those are the parts that I really love, because that's like, that's me.
When we met, that was like in 2013, 2014. Around that time, I became an intern at Hip Hop DX, and you were a journalist at Hip Hop DX. And side note, I loved working with you all there. I feel like when I became an intern there, it was like prime hip hop DX. Everyone there was just so great. And the version of Andres that I got to know was like the journalist. And I remember when I left and I came back to Arizona to finish my college degree, I I remember there was like a time where I specifically noticed that you started pursuing photography more, or like you were more outward about it, like you were more expressive with your photography. And then you like worked with Genius. I don't know, I just like noticed these like transitions of Andres over time, and you are someone to me who is multi-passionate. You're very passionate about multiple things. How have you navigated being someone who's into photography, into journalism, into interviews, into writing, into all of that? How do you navigate being multi-passionate?
That's a great question. I think it's just about, these are the things that have called me since I was young. Art, within art, music specifically, words more specifically, and and all of those things as an extension of life, like trying to understand life through those things. All of that just called my name since I was young. And I'll tell you, when we met, you met me because through work, and so you saw me in that space as like, oh, he writes and he cares about writing, and he cares about, like, getting the facts right in news stories and things like that, and interviewing people with like integrity. Like, that's who you met, and that's an important part of me. But prior to that, I was a teacher for 3 years, and the students who met me knew me in that mode, and they were like, oh, he's a teacher, he cares deeply about teaching. And the folks who know me for my photography, they know me as the photographer. They might not even know that at that time, they might not have even known that I was writing, because I kept those worlds kind of separate. And then, I think over time I've been able to kind of blend those worlds a little bit more. But that's a great way to say that's where I found the piece of myself where it's like, oh, these are all puzzle pieces that make up who I am. I am not one of those things. I am all of those things. And because I've always been all of those things. I've always been this person who's fascinated by art, who's fascinated by the beauty of words, who's fascinated by life and the wisdom that we can get from the experiences that we have, all of those things. And how do we impart that into other people? How do we share that with others, teaching? So it's like all of those things have always been very important to me. That's all who I am. And if you meet me in one mode, you might think like, oh, he cares very deeply about that. And if you meet me in another, oh, he cares very deeply about that. And then when you meet me and know me for a while, you're able to see, oh, he just cares deeply about all of these things. He's just, and when you see me in dad mode, you're like, oh, he just cares deeply about his children. When you see, you know what I mean? It just, I care deeply about all of these things, and I'm passionate about all of these things, but it's because this is just who I've been called to be. And I don't view it as like, I don't view it this way anymore as like juggling different things. It's like, oh no, it's just all me. And so it's not like I'm trying to, you call it like being like faceted, or like having different interests, but it's really just one interest. It's just me. It just happens to be like that, where it just comes off like a bunch of different things, but really that's my mind all the time. And I've realized that just, man, shout out to Rob Markman too, because when I started working with him at MTV News, which is after we met, so maybe like a couple of years after, he was like, man, you're a good photographer and you're a good writer. Why don't you just shoot the people that you're writing about? And I was like, that's brilliant. And then for a long time, I tried to compartmentalize my different sides of myself. So like my students didn't know that I interviewed rappers on the weekends. And, you met me as a writer and didn't know that I was taking photographs. And so a lot of people kind of knew different sides of me. And that, I don't know if Rob knows how big that was, but I don't think I knew how big that was at the time. But looking back, I'm like, man, that was huge for Rob to give me that advice. And once he did, I shot a few things and some really cool things, some really cool people and some really cool stories. And it elevated even what I was writing about. And then that continued at Wrap Up, where they really encouraged that too. And, it's been great to kind of see all of those worlds colliding and blending so that it doesn't feel like a bunch of different puzzle pieces that are like outside of myself. They're all puzzle pieces that work well together.
I love how you express that it's not necessarily that you're doing all of these different things. It's that just all of these make up the wholeness of who you are. And I've reflected a lot on that as well for myself, because I too consider myself to be someone who's just multi-passionate, quote unquote. But I know that there's people who also are reflections of us in this way and are trying to figure out, where do I even start with like what passion or like what do I know what to pursue first? Did you experience this as well? Because it seems like where you're at now, it's like you're able to balance all of this. Like you're pretty grounded in, doing all of these things.
Yeah. I mean, I never thought any of this would be possible. I didn't think you could write about rap or interview rappers and they'll pay you money to do that. Never in a million years. I never thought that. And so I just thought like, I saw my sister be a teacher. I was like, that's inspiring. I like how she's impacting these children's lives, even at a very young age. Like she was doing kindergarten and she was like, I was like, man, she just taught them how to tie their shoes, you know what I mean? Like how to hold a pencil. Like these are fundamental things that they're gonna go through life because of my sister's guidance. Like I just thought that was super powerful. And then, so I'm gonna do that. Like that seems like the thing that I should do. And then somebody offered me, to write about rap. Shout out to Shake from Two Dope Boys, but at the time, he wasn't at Two Dope Boys yet. But back then, man, he just reached out to me and he said, hey, I like how you write. And he just saw something I wrote on a message board and was like, hey, I like that. You should get paid for that. And I was like, wow, that's cool. But even then, I didn't see it as like a career. I didn't see that as a reality. So it was like, okay, that's cool. That's a cool thing that I'm going to do while I get my teaching credential. And, and I went to school and did all that while at the same time writing news stories, writing reviews, writing interviews, and, getting a lot of my early work in that field. And then you start taking pictures. And you're like, this is cool. But I never in a million years thought someone's going to pay me money to do this. I was just taking photos with my phone because I thought that was cool. And then eventually you realize like, man, all these things they're not just like little cool things that you like to do. Those are your passions. Those are the things that bring you life. They make you feel alive. And at the end of the day, that's what life is about, right? Being alive. And so if there's a way for you to connect the things that make you feel alive in a way that will, help you in your career, pursue that. Had I known early on that like, oh, you could write about rap, I probably would have done other things to try to follow that path. Or had I known like you could be a photographer and that's a career path, like I would have probably done other things to try to follow that career path. I'm glad that I did everything the way I did it though. Because I think eventually it just helped me be really well-rounded in all those things and really not chase something because of a lucrative outcome, but just like, this is what I love to do. And if I love something, I'm going to care about it. And I'm going to care about being really good at it. And so, I think I didn't pursue something with the outcome of it being financially lucrative. I just looked at it as like, I'm going to pursue this because this makes me feel alive. And so my advice to anybody out there, who's smarter than I was at that age and is looking for that kind of advice, then I would say, yeah, follow your heart, follow the things that make you feel alive, and try to see how you can create a future out of that.
Yeah, I am in agreement with everything that you said, and do believe that that passion, or like the energy of passion, is really powerful in that way that, as you pursue your passions, the clarity will unfold in regards to your direction.
You know what? Everything I say, you say way better. So we're just going to go with your answer. What you just said, just delete everything I said and make that the answer. That was good.
Thank you.
You boiled that down really well.
We know that there's a lot of people here in LA pursuing their passions, and there's a lot of photographers, there's a lot of writers, there's a lot of interviewers, a lot of photographers. Have you experienced comparing yourself to those people who are also pursuing the same or similar pursuit as you are?
Yeah, I think it's human nature. Anytime you get into any kind of field, to be like, okay, what does the rest of the field look like? And what are the potential results from this? Like, okay, so-and-so is doing that. Okay, so-and-so is doing that. And okay, they're making that thing work for them. But it's only healthy to do that if it doesn't breed any kind of envy or hatred, if it doesn't make you be like, man, hey, they're whack. They shouldn't have those, whatever achievements. If you get into that mode, then it's unhealthy. You got to back away from that situation immediately, because that's not going to help you. People call it like a lack of abundance in your mindset, right? It's like to be like, man, I need that. There can only be one. That's never going to work out. So it's not good to compare in that way. But you can always compare to say like, oh, so-and-so is using that tool, whether it's a camera or a lens. That's cool. They're doing it for that. I could probably use that for this and learn a lesson from what they did, but then take it and put my own flavor on that, Or, if somebody interviews an artist that I'm interviewing, like I might read their article, not necessarily to hate on them because they got that opportunity, but to be like, okay, how did they approach it? Okay, so they've already been asked this question 1,000 times. Let me not ask that same question 1,000 times more. I'm going to approach it differently. So you have to compare yourself in that way to other people, but only if it helps inspire you to do greater things, or to be yourself in a unique way. And I think it's natural to, compare yourself to other people. But I think if you find that becoming unhealthy, you should definitely back away from that and just approach it from a more like, almost like colleagues, And so, photography is the same way. Like you see somebody photograph a subject or a person or, a scenery or whatever. You don't want to necessarily copy them or hate on them, but you learn from them and you approach it your own way,
Yeah. How about, what's it called? Imposter syndrome. Is that something that you've experienced?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Sometimes, you get into a mode where you're like, I'll tell you, like, it maybe it was as a writer or in photography, you're like, maybe I'm not that good. I just got lucky when I did the thing that I did, Now everybody has figured me out. I shall never take another good picture again. And, you get in your head that way. And then you have to kind of readjust. You have to be, okay, hold on a second. Is that real, or is that just like the mind playing tricks on you? And once you're able to kind of readjust and figure things out, take a deep breath and reassess. Oh no, I did the things that I've done because I'm me. Like Beyonce has the opening track on the new album, where it kind of shares that sentiment. I love that she opens the album with that. Like, man, I'm me. That's why my life is the way it is, because of me. And that, not to sound, too confident or too cocky, but it's just like, and that's the reality. You are where you are because of your decisions, right? Like the things that you have done as Jocelyn has led you to your life today. And same here. And so you can't be an imposter, because those are the things that's all you. That's all you. That's not somebody else. Now, if you plagiarize somebody or you stole somebody's work, or okay, that's not you. You're an imposter for real. But if you have been true to yourself and you've done your work, then the stuff you've done before is because of you. And so, you can't shy away from that and just be like, okay, I'm me. I'm gonna keep being me. Let me see what else I could do in this world. But yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome is real, and it will knock you down, and it will make you doubt yourself. Sometimes you got to take a deep breath, take a second, look in the mirror and be like, okay, yeah, you're you. Now let's keep being ourselves and, continue on.
Yeah, it really is about, or in large part about, recentering yourself in those moments where you start catching yourself like unraveling and spiraling in that way. And I feel like when it comes to imposter syndrome, it has a lot to do with your sense of self-worth. Because it's like you start questioning, like, am I actually meant to be here? Am I worthy of being here? And it's like, no, yes, I was brought to this table for a reason. I was invited to this table for a reason because I did XYZ and I'm worthy of being here. Are there any other like mental or even spiritual obstacles that have showed up on your creative journey?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why I'm so fascinated by life in the way that I am, and in other people's lives, and being able to interview them about it. I'm like, have you been thinking about the things I've been thinking about? Because this life is, a trip. But yeah, I think we all struggle with mental obstacles. I don't think spiritual so much, but definitely mental. You encounter blocks on your journey, and you go, oh man, am I ever going to get past that? Maybe it's like a creative block, or maybe it's like a work situation that's not working out or something like that. And you might feel like, okay, maybe I'm not going to get past this. And I think everybody encounters that. For me, something that's helped me is looking at things and like, okay, where can this go wrong? Okay, so let me figure out how to approach it so it don't go wrong. And so I'm able to analyze situations in that way, like, okay, this can go bad in this way, in that way, and in that way. I know that worst case scenario, this is what's gonna happen. So then how do I reverse engineer it so that the worst things don't happen, and so that we're all taken care of? And in work, that's been very helpful, because you're able to kind of see pitfalls in advance and go, okay, that's not. But you have to be careful that you don't let those things then overtake you. Like, man, things are gonna be bad. You can't let it be super negative. You just have to kind of, okay, I understand now what could happen. But now take a deep breath, and then let's avoid those pitfalls. And I think that's a gift and a curse, but that's how I approach things.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you bringing up that one of the reasons why you love having these kinds of conversations with other people is like finding those commonalities of the human experience. You converse and interview a lot of artists that so many people listening to this really love. And I feel called to ask you, in all the conversations that you've had with all of these artists, have you found like a commonality with all of them where you've realized like, man, we really are all in this together, like we really are human? Like, has there been like a common theme that has been coming up for you with all the artists you talk to?
Of course, yeah. I think that's the common theme. We're all human, and there's a lot that comes with that. We're complex people. There are highs, there are lows. Brother Ali says highs and lows, joys and woes, and I always love that. And all of us have that, and so we're all traveling this journey. And for me, that's what it is. It's like whenever I interview somebody and they're able to share something about their lows, it's like some other kid is out there and they look at you as a superhero. But you sharing that vulnerable moment and how you've been able to, overcome that, that's going to let them know that it's possible. And hopefully that's going to let them carry on in a really powerful way. Who knows what that person will do. And so that's the connection, right? We're all connected, really. Everybody you see today, you have a power to say, I'm going to change their life or change their day just by smiling at them, just by, being kind. And sometimes, you're in a hurry. You might be a little rude to somebody. You might mess up their day and you don't realize it. Or you might accidentally cut somebody off in traffic. Like, oh, I didn't see you. That might be the last straw for their bad day. We don't know. You might let somebody go through and that might be the break they needed in the day. Like, oh, thank you. I needed that. I'm running late. Thank you. You made my day. We're all connected. And I think the more conversations you have with people, not just celebrities, but people, you realize that we're all one. And the rapper Idea has this beautiful song that I love. And I hope it gets played when I pass away, which hopefully is in 150 years. But when that happens, I hope they play this Idea song. But he has this beautiful line in it where he says, well, the whole song is beautiful. I'm gonna pull away just one line from it. But he says, we're all intricate pieces of infinity. We're all intricate. We're all complex. We're all unique. We're all individuals. We have our layers. We have every one of us, but we're part of something. And this is humanity. And we're all connected in that way. And so we have to be here for one another. And these conversations, like the one we're having, or the ones that I aspire to have whenever I have conversations with artists who are meaningful, hopefully that helps us understand this experience a little bit better. And, if we can impart some knowledge or some shared ideals with one another, it's like, oh, I never thought about that. Or, man, I've always thought about that, but I never looked at it from that perspective. All of those, that's what you hope to get. But I think the more you talk to people, you just realize, man, how connected all of us are. And then when you're talking to celebrities and you view them that like, oh man, they're celebrities, then you're never gonna break that wall. But if you're able to talk to them as human beings, that's when real conversations happen. And so the more interviews that I've done, it's just, you realize, oh, we're all human beings and we're all here trying to share something with the world. So let's do that. And let's have thoughtful conversations and insightful conversations,
Mm-hmm. That's one reason why I love interviewing and conversing with people so much and having these conversations, because I just feel like there's so much power in storytelling and we learn so much from one another. And even someone listening to this who may, admire your work and may be thinking like, oh, like, I wish I could be Andres, who works at Genius and interviews all of these people, but I don't know if I could get there. I don't even know how to start or whatever. And then they hear that you were a teacher once and they're like, oh, interesting. Like, I would have never thought his journey had that, or what, that was part of his journey. Yeah. So
no, and I appreciate that you said what you said about why you enjoy these conversations, because I find that to be admirable in what you do, and why, agreed to be on this even is like, you're really intentional about your questions, and everybody that you've had on here, that you're really thoughtful about what you ask them and you really care. And I think that's the more that I like maneuver through this world, the more I want to be around people who are intentional and who care, and who want, is that's the beauty of life, is that we can go through this with intention, or we can just kind of go through it like whatever. I want to go through this with intention. And so I want to, surround myself with people who do too. And so I know you just said that, you appreciate that side of this, but I wanted to commend you because it shines, it shines through.
Thank you, Andres. I appreciate that. And I receive those words of affirmation. And I'm really grateful that we crossed paths and that we've stayed in touch since my internship at DX, because you are someone who also is very intentional and very genuine. And I really appreciate you for being your true self in that way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you spiritual? Or would you consider yourself as someone who is spiritual?
Okay, so let me ask you, how would you define that?
I there's so many, I feel like there's so many. That's a great question, because I feel like spirituality or someone being spiritual has many different kinds of definitions for many different people. So for me personally, my personal definition of being spiritual is being someone who is, I guess, in the simplest terms, in tune with their spirit.
Then yeah, if we go by that definition, for sure. For sure. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier, like just being in tune with the voice that's guiding you. And sometimes that cannot be confused with the voice that's telling you negative things, that like the imposter syndrome voice, like that's not your real voice. That's not your spirit. That's something else. And you got to rid yourself of that as much as you can. But you know when you hear the voice that's real, the voice that's telling you like, follow this path. I know you, you know me, follow this path. Like that's the spirit to me.
You mentioned earlier in the conversation that you and your family pray and that gratitude is a part of your prayer. What are other aspects of your spiritual practice aside from prayer?
So, yeah, and I'll say like, it doesn't have to be religious, you know, but I just try to be mindful. Like I said, like in my season is being like present or trying to be as present as possible. And so you might just close your eyes and breathe for a bunch. Maybe it's a minute, maybe it's 30 seconds, whatever your life allows you. Maybe it's 2 minutes, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 15. But, you know, just being in tune like that, that's when you really try to zone out the things that are bad and try to hone in on the voice that's your spirit guiding you. So I might take some time to do that, some breathing. Shout out to Debbie Brown, who she has this cool thing on YouTube that you can look up. It's like, she has a few actually where you can find like, just different meditation practices and stuff. And she's a good friend. She was on the podcast, and she's an awesome person. But I'll like, okay, let me check that out. You know, she has the meditation practices on YouTube that you could just look up. Like, okay, breathing techniques, breathing strategies. And then, you know, you might walk through the day and be like, okay, I'm gonna use that breathing strategy. So there's that, breathing. Also, just walking. Just go out for a walk. And I think the more you do all these things, the more you can do them at any point. So you could be at home, just like walking around your house and just be like mindful of like, there's a breeze, the window's open. You know, all these things that are just like you take for granted. But if you're mindful of all those things, you're like, I'm present right now. I am present. And then that might help in other ways, you know. So as long as you try to approach things in that way, like, okay, let me breathe. Let me be mindful of the things that are happening around me so I don't take them for granted. And you just start being more alert. And then that practice becomes more routine. It becomes more habitual. And then you're like, before you know it, something might happen that might trigger you, where you might have got mad or you might have got sad. But because you've been breathing when, you know, in the other moments of your life, in that moment, rather than like get triggered immediately, there's a pause. And in that pause, you go, okay, it's not that bad. That situation right there, it's not that bad. It was trying to take me somewhere, but take a deep breath. You're like, that's not gonna make me sad. That's not gonna make me spiral. That's not gonna make me mad. Actually, that's not even that bad. Actually, I might have misunderstood the whole situation. Let me just be more in tune with what's really happening. And so that those are like spiritual practices maybe, but eventually they just become day-to-day habits that form.
I don't know how long you may have been this way or like in tune with your spirit, but how would you say your spirituality or your spiritual practices have contributed to your success?
I don't know. I'm sure they've really helped for sure. I'm sure they've helped, but I never connected those things yet. I'm sure all of those things help because, when you're having an interview, like if you interview somebody big, you might get nervous. But if you've done it enough times and you kind of, do your breathing and you're in tune with what's happening in the moment, you're not going to freak out. You're not going to get anxious about it. You're just going to be like, okay, I know what I'm here to do. I know what I've prepared to do. And we're just going to have a conversation as two human beings. And then you lose that sense of nervousness, but all of those. So I think any kind of spiritual habits like that is going to help you with not just work, but life.
There's a few last couple questions that I really want to get to and ask you.
Let's go.
It was your birthday not too long ago. And
right.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Happy belated birthday to you too.
Thank you. In your birthday post on Instagram, a part of your caption said something along the lines of, this isn't just another year in your life. This is another year as a parent, another year as a husband, another year as a human in search of understanding of the self and of the world. So that said, I feel inspired to ask you, what is a recent understanding that you've gained about yourself? And what's a recent understanding you've gained about the world?
Man, I'll start with self. I think this whole thing about just being present all the time, that being a possibility, not that I am present all the time, but that it's possible to like be present when you're bored. Like if you're standing in line at a grocery store or something, I never thought like, oh, this is a great opportunity to be present. Now I know that it is a great opportunity to be present, because then once you start doing that enough, then you start being present in other ways and other things that are like important or mundane. And so I think that's something that I've learned about myself, is that I can do that. Not to say that I'm always doing that or that I'm really good about that, but like, oh, I can, and I want to, and I like that. That's an understanding of self and of the world. That's deep. I don't know. I think the world is in such a turbulent time right now that I think about that often, but I don't know that I understand it, but I hope that the world can figure out that idea that we are all together, that we are all one, and that what happens to this group of people affects you. Even if it doesn't affect you, it will affect you in one way or another. It directly affects you. You might not think that, oh, that's happening to that group of people. That's not happening to our group of people. That's wrong. Everything that happens to everybody affects everybody. And so I think that's an important thing that I hope that the world understands, that we are all connected, and that, man, the future depends on that understanding. At least, a really good future that I want for my children, that depends on that understanding. And, I pray that we get there one day.
Yeah, I pray the same. And I really resonate with both of those things that you shared. I've actually been reflecting a lot about, as you mentioned, that possibility that you actually can experience this life fully present in the now moment. And realizing that most of us actually spend most of our lives not even here, like right now in this moment. We spend most of our time thinking of the past or thinking of the future, which robs us from the experience of being here now. And I've reflected on that quite a bit, and it's wild to me. Like when I first realized, like, oh my gosh, I've spent most of my time being in the past and the future and not here right now, it really woke me up, and it inspired me to like practice being present.
Yep,
And
100%. That's
yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah. And in regards to oneness, that's also been something that I've reflected on a lot, is how, you may not think that, what's happening to other people is affecting you, but it does actually directly affect you. And that separation is one of the greatest illusions in this life.
That's a fact, because you can't even think about other people. They're people just like you. Ain't no, you know what I mean? And again, I'm a quote Brother Ali. There's no me and no you. It's just us.
Yeah. And I really do believe that intention and mindfulness is very powerful. And I really appreciate people like you who practice intentionality and mindfulness, because it truly does affect the world in ways that, go beyond ourselves.
And I also want to say that it's not that I'm super intentional all the time or very mindful all the time. I don't think anybody is. But I try to be when I can, and if I ever forget or if I ever waver, then I try to get back on that path. But so it's not about perfection. It's not about like, oh, I got it all figured out. And it's not that. It's just, we're here. So why not try to be intentional about this experience as much as we can be, while still trying to enjoy things, still trying to, have fun and enjoy it, but even being intentional about those things. That's I think something that we should all strive for. Don't mean we all get it. Don't mean we all can achieve that, but we can all strive for it,
Yeah, I'm glad that you clarified that and you affirmed that. The last couple of things that I really want to touch on are fatherhood and your partnership, because they're a big part of your life. And I'm curious to ask you how becoming a father changed you.
I think becoming a father gave me like a greater sense of direction. Like I've always been intentional, like I said, or I've always been mindful of like, oh, these are my passions. And I think with another life, you have to be even more so. You have to even be more sharp about, okay, these are my intentions with the world. And then these are the things that are important to me. And then you become more mindful of your time, where your time is spent. And so, I might not be able to do certain things because like, well, I know I need to be there for bath time, or I know I need to be there for bedtime. And those things are important to me. And those things are important to my family. So it's like, okay, I'm going to be intentional about that. If I'm ever not able to do that because I have to do something for work or whatever, then just being intentional about it the next day, like, oh, I missed that. So let me, be here for this, and I think it's just, it makes you even more grounded in who you are and who you need to be. Parenthood does. And man, I'm grateful for both of my kids, and for the person that I want to be for them. And I want to say I'm grateful for my dad, because the more I am a father, the more I realize what a phenomenal father he was and what a great example he was. And he was such a great example that the way I talk about him, I hope that my kids are able to talk about me that way too, because man, he is an incredible person, and I'm grateful that he's still, here with us. I love that example that he set. I love the person that he is, and the things that he taught me, directly or just indirectly, just by being who he is. Hopefully my kids are able to talk about me in that way too, you know what I mean?
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was actually going to follow up with, how did becoming a father shift your perspective on your own dad, or like, what insights came about from that? Because I'm sure that it does. When you become a parent, you start reflecting on your own parents and seeing them in a different light. So I'm glad that you expanded on that.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. It's definitely elevated. Like I've always loved my dad. I always respected him greatly. He's an incredible person. But yeah, parenting now, like, oh man, it elevates everything that I ever felt. But great, great man.
You've been with your partner for quite some time. How long have you two been together?
We just celebrated 9 years married. Next year, we're going to celebrate our 10th year anniversary of marriage. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to have met her at a really young age, and I'm glad we're still rocking.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And the one and only question I want to ask you about your partnership is, if you're open and sharing, what's a difficulty or a challenge that you both experienced in your partnership? And what about your partnership helped you overcome that?
I think whether it's dating or engagement or marriage or children, you're always going to encounter some roadblock along the way. And it varies based on whatever that time in your life is, right? So it's like in engagement, you might experience this sort of thing. With parenting, you might experience this sort of thing. And dating, you might experience this sort of courtship, you might experience this sort of thing. But what I'm really grateful for is that in every phase of this, I feel like the root of our love is strong. And so there's, none of these hurdles or whatever, or obstacles or challenges take me off of that, And I think it's important if you're looking to have a partner in this life game, that love be solid at its root, because there are going to be challenges inevitably. And the only way that you'll ever be able to overcome all of those obstacles is if the love is solid at the core. And so I'm grateful to have somebody like my wife, who she's solid for sure, for sure. So
Yeah, I love that. And something that's similar to something that like I really, really realized in my previous relationship is that foundation is everything. Like it really, really matters. And not even just in relationships, but in career, in your personal life, in spirituality, in everything. Like your foundation is important. And it determines the longevity of things.
for sure, like we talking about, why I got into this career field is because it was love. It was a passion for words. It was an appreciation for integrity in any kind of journalism. It was a hope and a yearning to share things with the world that might be helpful as a teacher. So, and it was an appreciation for art. And that is the core of everything that I've done. Photography, this love of art, teaching, this love to share things with the world and try to learn something and share it with the world. And this integrity within journalism, how I approach any kind of relationships within this industry or any kind of interview, and this appreciation for words and music in that way. It's like that, all those things. This is why I do what I do today, but it's because the core of that is solid. It comes from love. It doesn't come from like, I'm trying to get money, go into this thing, or I really want to meet famous people, I'm gonna go into this. It's not ever that. It's a deep love for the art and a deep love for learning about life and trying to share those lessons with the world.
Yeah, I love how this naturally kind of came full circle. We started the conversation with you living the life of your dreams and, what kind of person you had to be in order to manifest that for yourself, so to say. And I feel like the underlying core theme of this whole conversation has been, true love, true passion, true self. And yeah, thank you for sharing your story with us. I'm really grateful for you.
No, thank you.
So before we get into the final 5, which are just 5 fill in the blank sentences, I'd like to hold space for you in the case that there's anything you feel called to share that we maybe didn't get into. But if not, todo bien. It's all good.
No, I just want to say that I hope that what you are building with your channel and with your own personal endeavors and your businesses, I hope that all flourishes. I think you've always been like a kind-hearted person who wants to do well in the world. And you could tell that you really want to do better for yourself too, like your own well-being, with your gratitude stuff or with your journal entries and so on. It's like, oh, this person wants to be better. And this person wants to help the world in some way. I'm all about that. So, man, I can't wait to see what you build with everything that you're doing. So congratulations on everything you've done. And I can't wait to see what else you have, in the future.
Thank you, Andres. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you. You've always been a very genuine, real person. And I appreciate you. And your support means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. So what are these fill in the blanks
5.
you got for me?
All right. So you can finish the sentences with one word or more than one word. Ready?
Ready.
I am grateful to know.
I'm grateful to know that I want to know more about myself. Because I don't think it's right that I know every aspect of myself, and I'm not a know-it-all, but I'm grateful to know that I want to know more about myself.
I am grateful to heal.
Daily, period. Like I think we need to try to heal ourselves in one way or another every single day. And I think that's important. If you can heal some aspect of your life every day, oh man, things are going to get better in no time.
I am grateful to be.
I am grateful to be here, alive. I
am grateful to release.
I feel like that's a complete sentence. I am grateful to release. Like anything negative, anything that might hold me back, I'm grateful to release that.
And I am grateful to overcome.
I'm grateful to have been able to overcome any obstacle in front of me by trying to follow that guiding light or that guiding voice in my spirit. And I hope that I'm able to continue doing that, because the job is not over and all the lessons are not learned. But I hope I can carry that on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing all that. Tell the people where to find you, where to support you. Tell them where to go and listen to your podcast, because it's incredible. I'll link it in the show notes, but tell people where to go.
Go to the show notes and all the info will be there.
Yes, all the info will be there. All the info will be there.
But I'm glad you mentioned the podcast, because I think that's a fun thing that I've been doing. It's called My Years Through My Ears. And I talk to people about their years through the music that they've really been inspired by. And so a great way to connect my love for music with my love for the human experience.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Andres. I am really excited to share this conversation with my podcast community.